You should be able to join by phone if if you do the call in, and we'll keep an eye out for your phone number.
Well, I hope the things go better. But so now the phone number I use is
It should be in that link that you got in your email.
okay.
But I can send it to you here.
I'll look it up and see what I can do. I'm still learning about computers, so
That's okay.
uh, la, 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 la. I see a number here, 438-809-7799. Is that the one?
Yeah, I just sent it to you in the chat.
Okay.
So you'll need that passcode there on the end as well.
Don't stress me beyond my limits of understanding now, because
It'll ask you for a password, so you'll have to type in that number at the end there.
well, hopefully we don't need it, but yeah, everything is fine. You people grew up with computers. We kind of had to learn it, and didn't always go. And still learning. Let's put it that way.
No problem.
It does look like we have one, sorry. It does look like we have one caller at this time, 270-0507. Can you confirm who that is? Caller on the line,
Yes,
are you able to
it's
hear us?
Chris Struck.
Okay, hi Chris, thank you.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Right, just confirming from the clerk's department here that we do have quorum. So Chair Smith, whenever you're ready, you can feel free to proceed.
Lovely. Thank you so much. It is great to have quorum this morning. Welcome to the Grey County Ag Advisory Committee meeting for September 3rd, 2025. It was in June since we last met, so I hope you've had a great summer since then. Thanks for taking the time to attend today. It's great to have quorum, as I already said, and welcome to anyone watching from home as well. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:02 a.m. Any declarations of interest for today's meeting? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, if any should arise during the course of the meeting, please make us aware of them at that time. We have no delegations this morning. We have one item for direction or discussion. That is PDR AAC 56-25 Wildlife Management Bylaw Update. Is Scott presenting this, or is Sarah presenting this? Sarah, welcome. Are you ready to roll?
I'll do my best.
Thank you so much.
Just bear with me here. I'll get my screen up here for you, everyone. Okay. Can everybody see that? Okay, perfect. So, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Chair, for that introduction. For those of you that don't know me, but I think we all have met at one point or another, my name is Sarah Johnson. I am the Trails and Forestry Coordinator, but I also get to work with a portfolio of what we call in planning agriculture, which is um, a mere speck of what you guys all deal with on a daily. But what that does cover is our wildlife management bylaws. So our coyote and our beaver nuisance bylaws. So back earlier this year, we were directed by council to review these documents as they had been highlighted by some individuals that they were antiquated and they needed some updates. And so council had directed staff to do a thorough review of these. We have started that process. We did previously meet with the committee to discuss both the wildlife management as well as the forestry management bylaw, but today it's just wildlife management. And so we just wanted to have a discussion with the committee this morning as to what we've heard so far, because we have had some public process, and that process, for those that may have attended those meetings or have watched online, may have only been appeared to have been one-sided, but we have heard from both sides of the perspective. So I'm going to jump right in here if this will let me. So we did hold a public workshop on April 23rd at Greg Services. Thank you again, Lori, for hosting that meeting. And then we also had a more formal public meeting on May the 8th, specifically regarding the beavers and the coyote bylaw. And those are two separate bylaws. I'm just melding them into one. And these comments that we've highlighted in my report as well as in this presentation are kind of putting them together, but we will separate them when we're discussing them. We also had a commenting for written comments. We had a deadline of May 30th of this year. So we have received a fair few comments for both in support and both for the support of the discontinuation of the program. So we wanted to highlight those. I think for this audience, we probably know a lot of why there is support for these programs. A lot of what we heard is that there still needs to be an incentive and there needs to be fair compensation to trap and control animal populations, and as well as using a program like a bounty program. It provides a licensed trapper to be administering or to be trapping the animals. It also helps to reduce overpopulation, overpopulation issues, which includes starvation and disease. Overpopulation will cause those unnecessary costs to landowners and taxpayers. We did also hear anecdotal evidence that suggested that nuisance animal populations do remain at high levels. We also had some statistics. I believe it was from the sheep farmers of Ontario that Grey County was #1 in the province for predation, if not in 2023 and 2024 as well. So we are looking, it is a significant problem in Grey County. There is obviously significant impact on land and infrastructure from flooding. This is obviously with regards to the beaver bylaw. There are impacts on both financial, emotional, and mental health of farmers for the loss of livestock due to predation. Landowners need to be able to protect their livestock, and there has and also that we also heard that there has been an increase in pet attacks, and it's only a matter of time before a child or a human becomes a victim to some of these animals. Other things that we heard regarding the bylaws themselves in support of it is obviously specifically that the compensation needs to be increased. That was one of the big things that we heard from those hunters and trappers. We also heard that paperwork to submit is quite onerous, and so we needed to streamline that if possible. We also heard specifically with regards to the coyote bylaw, the need for the proof of a kill to implement the bylaw or to qualify for the bounty, because some of the attacks that are occurring right now, especially with those smaller livestock like lamb or chickens or those sorts of things, there's not always anything left behind to to prove that there was a kill. So that's something that we want to look into as well. I'm just kind of want to make sure. There was comments about the program streamlining with neighboring counties, because obviously livestock or wildlife does not know boundaries, municipal boundaries, which obviously that makes sense. And then we also heard that there were some municipalities who are the ones that sign off on these for the county and receive the ears or the tails. Some of those are not actually physically receiving them; they're just letting the trapper or the hunter take them back with them. So that could pose some problems if there wasn't honesty in that process. And then there was the comment that obviously this has been a long time since we have reviewed this bylaw, and there needs to be regular review of it, and that needs to involve groups like the Grey Bruce Trappers, the Ministry of Agriculture, the MNRF, the local agricultural community, and so we just wanted to. They just wanted those things to be highlighted, and we want to consider those when we are doing this review process. So those were some of the main things that we heard when it came to the support of keeping these programs in place. On the other side of things, and I think I had the breakdown in my report. Yes, we had when it came to comments, we had about 58% of the comments were in support of keeping the program in place, and there was 42% not wanting the bylaws to be in place anymore and supported their repeal. So just to kind of give an idea of what we're talking about, it wasn't a very skewed. There was almost a 50-50 breakdown here of comments. So those in support of removing the bylaws or discontinuing the bylaws noted that a lot of the things that was flagged for our review was that there is a lot of research available that when we put a strain on a species, they actually increase in numbers through higher birth rates, and therefore the bounty program could actually be having the opposite effect on controlling populations. The other thing is nuisance is a very subjective term. And we heard this specifically with both of the bylaws, but especially with the beaver bylaw, because as the next point says, coexistence can be done with minimal encounters and non-lethal methods. So those were things that were flagged for us. By removing culling or relocation, it will disrupt the natural habitat. Removal by culling or relocation will disrupt the natural habitat. And there are long-term sustainable, humane, and non-lethal solutions that should be considered first before the lethal ones. There was information provided regarding such things as beaver baffles and fencing for protection of infrastructure, land, and livestock. The removal, one of the points that was flagged by more than one person or more than one comment that we received was that the removal of body parts for the purposes of claiming a bounty is quite a barbaric practice, and as such, some of the comments proceeded to go on and say that the program was quite archaic and quite antiquated. So sorry, I'm just trying to navigate my report to make sure I can get any of those extra comments as well. Other things that we heard was from both sides was that education was key. We need to educate ourselves specifically as a county with regards to what is available from both perspectives. Who is doing what? Is this a program that is sustainable? is there other options? Also the education of the public and, you know, why these bylaws are in existence and should they continue on, you know, why we do them and how we are using the best practices possible. The other thing that was flagged as an alternative to a lethal method of management was the guardian livestock dogs, and specifically the need to get the support from the municipalities that have those bylaws, dog bylaws in particular, that are in place to accommodate the need for a working dog. And so to have some relief from number restrictions as well as fees for owning dogs for that purpose. Obviously, one of the strong comments that we heard from those in opposition of the bylaw being updated was to propose non-lethal methods first and foremost, and that the bylaws, should they be updated, should not restrict a landowner from protecting their property. So this is a high-level summary of all the comments that we heard, but it's a pretty rounded summary of all those individuals that did provide comments. So we wanted to provide those obviously to the Agricultural Advisory Committee and share any additional feedback that we had. We are planning as a staff to provide a similar update to County Council. And obviously we are still in the process of following up on some of our comments that we have received and a request for Indigenous consultation as well. We, at this point, don't have any timeline as to when a final recommendation is going to be made, but this is kind of where we're at in this stage of the process. So basically, we just wanted to provide the report with the update, and we wanted to consider any further feedback that you may have based on this new information. So that's all I had within my presentation, but I'm hoping that there could be a pretty good conversation as a result. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Before we move on to discussion, what you see here, or what you did just see, that report PDR AAC 5625 be received, and that staff consider any further feedback received from the Agricultural Advisory Committee with respect to the county's nuisance beaver and coyote wolf bylaw reviews. That is a motion proposed. It's on your agenda. Could someone move that motion, please, before we lead into discussion? I see Tom Hutchinson's name up, and Brenda, seconder. Wonderful. So now is our opportunity to discuss this fulsomely. We do have quorum today and we have lots of time. So let's tackle this subject matter and make sure we dig into all the points. Just raise your hand and let's roll. Simon, please.
Thank you, Laurie. And I was not at the meeting during Markdale, to my regret, but I generally like the presentation, all the stuff I hear. I think the one thing what we never seem to get enough of is education of everybody. And from what I hear, people with goats or small ruminating animals, those dogs, they seem to be increasingly becoming popular. So that may just be something that will help us out a little bit. Myself, for whatever reason, I am not really a great dog lover, but so there might be some drawbacks on that aspect of it. But generally, like from what I've seen at Farmers Week there, when those dogs were there, they were extremely well behaved and seemed to know what to do. So anyways, that's just my couple cents worth of observation.
Thank you, Simon. Someone else? Scott, please.
I think maybe just to thank you, Chair Smith, just to help spur discussion. Planning staff are struggling on this one. Certainly, we heard very passionate information from both trappers and the agricultural community with respect to the necessity of these programs. But we also, in a less public venue, heard similar pleas and evidence from sort of the non-farm community about other, as Sarah said, non-lethal methods. And certainly with respect to beavers, it was beaver baffles and other such things, but more so on the coyote and wolf program. It was things like education, it was things like fencing, and various other options there, the guard dogs and the dog bylaws, as Sarah's mentioned. And so, from a staff perspective, we don't have one clear path forward here just yet. We're trying to consider all options. With respect to some of the comments about, the county shouldn't be restricting anyone from protecting their livestock or their property in that regard. Whether the bylaws go forward in a similar form to the current form or not, the county is not doing that. They would still have the ability to trap on their properties and fence and everything else. It's more so, what is the county's role here? And certainly there might be a role in education and working with our member municipalities to look at our own processes, including some municipal dog bylaws. But I guess one of the matters we really want to try to get to the heart of is, are the bylaws having any counter effects with respect to that increasing population? As Sarah said, anecdotally, we've heard lots that coyotes are as prevalent or more prevalent than ever. We've had the bylaws in place for a number of years now. Are there other approaches we should be considering here? And because members of this committee have such lived experience, we're really hoping to tap into your knowledge here for that. So I'll stop rambling now and turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Valid points. Blair, please.
Just a few comments. The comment about relocating animals that are a nuisance, I start to squirm when I hear about that. So I don't think there's going to be many people in the agricultural community that will see that as a positive. We already have people that drop off pets and drop off surplus animals, and it's always a problem. One comment would be potentially maybe instead of having to prove your kill with a tail or something, is there some way to have a georeference photo that is proof of kill to modernize this process? And then I think the other comment would be that, I mean, personally speaking, most farmers I don't think are really like this whole bylaw doesn't really, I mean, they're already shooting coyotes basically, right? So whether or not there's a bylaw, I don't think really impacts the farmer's behavior. I think that our issue has been more of a lack of people that want to trap beavers. We have beavers, but nobody wants to come do it, right? Regardless of how much money there is. So I think it's more that perspective than actually being an issue of how much money they're making.
Thank you, Blair. Brenda, as a sheep farmer.
Yeah, we've actually had some coyote kills this year, including with no carcasses, so we could not prove them to the livestock assessor. We had one we could. I guess to address what Scott's saying about what way is there forward, is it an educational role, is it whatever? I do think education is a large part of it. I mean, the reason why we have these so-called nuisance animals, whether they be beavers or coyotes / wolves, is due to loss of habitat, right? Like, as we develop more areas of Grey and Bruce County, Grey County in particular for us, and so on, like this pressure is going to continue. We already know that coyotes actually are supremely well adapted for becoming quite urban, as we hear from some of the crazy stories in Toronto. So we're not, yeah, I think that until as a species we figure out how to live better and making space for, we're always going to have these interactions. And like Scott was saying, like, the numbers haven't come down despite having these bylaws in place. So Scott, I can't say specifically, oh, get rid of the bylaw because they're not useful. But I do think all around there needs to be more education about how essentially the reason why we have this problem is due to habitat loss for these animals. That doesn't really solve anything for anyone. But I think that in terms of on the agricultural community side, yes, of course, we do shoot the nuisance animal if we can. It is also very hard to tell if you shot the coyote who got your animal or some other one that never wanted to eat your animal, right? So, none of these are perfect things. I do think that this idea of being able to protect livestock better would be great, but again, guardian livestock animals are not like, I mean, they're hit and miss when you get a puppy, right? You need like 3. I think that some of those ideas around not having them licensed or let's like I think Lori can back me up on this. If you want to have livestock guardian dogs keep a flock fairly safe, you need at least 3. So I can't remember what the bylaw is in my area, Chatsworth. I think you're already getting close to the maximum number of animals you're allowed to have and so on. So I think maybe exploring some of those options just to make it easier to give direction to the municipalities as to like, different types of livestock animals would help the agriculture community there. In terms of fencing or whatever, just putting up page wire is not going to keep your coyotes out either. You really need actually quite strong electric fencing that never goes off, which, I mean, though that's a very expensive thing. I'm not sure that the county can fund that, right? That's a little bit crazy. Anyway, those are my 2 cents on that side. I almost wonder too if in this whole discussion about nuisance animals, I know that they're all sort of grouped together as like beavers and coyotes and wolves in the same place, but I do feel like maybe the public views them a little bit differently, and maybe you might get not quite the same set of opinions over beavers versus coyotes and wolves. I mean, I'm not saying to complicate everyone's lives even more with breaking up bylaws, but the one set, kills livestock, the other set causes other agricultural problems, and there are different ways to treat them all. And I agree with Blair. Relocating does not help anything because, yeah, it doesn't do anything at all. But anyway, I've gone on long enough. I think to what Scott was saying, there isn't a lot that I think the county can do, unfortunately. It really is has to do with habitat loss. So
Thank you very much, Brenda. Paul.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And just as a couple of comments, I am a beef farmer as well, so try to keep it sort of transparent. But I think the one comment I will make is the compensation hasn't had the cost of living built into that. And a lot of comments that I've heard is it's hardly even worth it to go through the process of even collecting the bounty. I would be interested to know if there was a report how it came about and why it came about. Obviously, there was a reason why something like this was put in place from the reasons of probably we're talking about today and how that came up. And I'm not sure how long this has been in, the compensation has been in play, but I will say that cost of living related to that, like, I mean, at the county, we have other costs and even in municipalities, we have fees and charges that we have to review every so often because everything else, the costs continue to go up. So just a thought on that sense. And that was one of the things I heard was it's not worth it anymore. As far as fencing, I know an individual sheep farmer quite a few years back and went to the cost and trouble of putting page wire around their sheep flock. And they still found that the coyotes were still digging under the fence to get to the sheep. So, I mean, that's a huge cost to do that, but they're determined, they're very determined. And I don't know in the sense of to the point of electric fence, if it would have to be almost like a mesh or something, I don't know. I think dogs, I'm trying to think of the municipality of Grey Highlands that if we have, I think something tells me that we have some kind of in there if they are working dogs, but I think from an educational point to the municipalities, if they are actually agricultural, well, even a farm dog is a working dog. And, we don't see it today, but we used to have a nuisance problems with groundhogs. And that was one of the reasons why you have a farm dog to keep, well, not just groundhogs, but as far as I understand, or what I sort of feel, that there's no more groundhogs anymore because the coyotes have taken care of the groundhogs. And I asked my dad, who's 91, when he was a kid, there wasn't coyotes. There was wolves, there was groundhogs, but there wasn't coyotes like we see today. So I don't know if that's an evolution thing or not. I don't know. As far as beavers, from a landowner's perspective, yes, flooding is an issue. it can, greatly affect your land, as was mentioned by a previous speaker. But not only that, from a municipality standpoint, water around your roads your roads don't, your roads suffer because you have wet areas that are affecting your shoulders of your roads. And that's another problem. And usually the municipalities, deal with that to a certain degree. But I think from the comments from the pros and the ones that maybe aren't in favor of this, I think it was mentioned by a previous speaker, when you go out and you witness a kill, it is emotionally stressful, I should say. And if you can't find any carcass, and today what I'm finding is they're in such a pack that if you do have a coyote kill, you're very fortunate to find it, because a lot of times there's so many, there's nothing left, or there's just pieces, or they drag it away. So I think we're seeing the coyote numbers are increasing, just from a personal perspective on that type of thing. But I think I think the question would be is, those that are greatly affected, and I don't know if you could reach out, and maybe you have, to the Grey County beef farmers, or the sheep. And I guess it was mentioned there about the Farmers Week, because you do have a lot of those commodities at Grey Bruce Farmers Week in January, and maybe there's been conversations. But I think it probably, if you asked any of those members of those groups, they would tell you, yes, it is a problem, and we need to do more. So I think it's in the perspective of who's making the comments, maybe to be greatly affected. But even driving down even to a further point, I remember there was a report just outside of Collingwood where they found a den, and there was a lot of dog collars. And so the coyotes have an effect on dogs and cats. The cat population around any barn cats, I find, can, in the summertime, can greatly reduce, because I guess they're out hunting and then they get caught by a pack of coyotes and stuff. So, is it the right thing to do? Is it? I don't know, but I guess it's one of those things I would really like to know is, how did it come to be? And the point of the inflationary compensation, I don't think has stayed with when it was first introduced. So I'll leave that, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Paul. Sarah, did you have a clarifying question or comment from what Paul said? Is that why you popped up? Go ahead then, please.
Actually, Brenda as well. I just wanted to clarify, there is two separate bylaws. There is a beaver bylaw, and there is a coyote wolf bylaw. So I just was melding all the comments as one. So I just wanted to clarify that there were two separate bylaws that we are dealing with updating. But with regards to the compensation, this is something that I want to dig deeper in and speak with some of the different organizations, the hunters and the trappers. But from what I understand historically, the trappers only they don't charge for their service. Which for me, as a landowner, as a person, hiring somebody for a service, I would have expected to be paying somebody for this service. But I guess historically, it was always about, being able to just get in there, and then you would have the cost of the pelt that would reimburse you, as well as this bonus little bounty fee, and that would cover your costs. But with the increased costs of gas and supplies and all of the equipment in order to do this, as well as the decrease in cost of, or what the pelts are worth, which by the sounds of it is almost next to nothing, and then obviously not keeping up with a bounty amount, there are very few people that even want to, I forget what the one old trapper told me, but basically don't even want to get off the couch for that one, something like that. So it's something that I want to understand a little bit more, and I think that kind of goes along with, like, how do we get here? I have reached out to the clerk's department just to say, these were introduced way back in the 80s and the 90s. Like, what was the purpose of these bylaws? So it is something that we will look into as part of the review, and what will be contained within my report to bring back to council as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Gail. You're muted, Gail. And just as Gail,
Sorry about that.
I just wanted to mention that Blair has some excellent comments in the chat as well, in case you haven't seen it. Okay, go ahead, please, Gail.
Thank you. And through the chair, being on a farm here, we've had beef cattle, we've had sheep. I've gone through, my father-in-law had 40 years ago, had probably 400 sheep. And that was when the coyotes came in, and actually dogs as well came in and killed 50 sheep. It's very traumatic, and it stays with you. And but I think, you know, with the bylaws, I think they do need to be updated, definitely. Compensation. As for farmers, we still have coyotes coming in. We had chickens up till just recently, but the chickens have gone in the freezer. So, you know, we are deer fenced around our orchard. Like, we have 6-foot deer fencing, and they go 2.5 feet into the ground. A trench is dug, the fencing goes down, and then the rest of it, so they're 8 feet basically. And coyotes have climbed them, jumped them, dug underneath them. They've done everything. And now we've got our gates open. We have to, because we're going to be starting to harvest in a couple of weeks. We can't be closing the gates for the coyotes. So I would say farmers deal with the coyotes. My husband and family are hunters, and they will go out and do what they have to do, but they don't want compensation for it. But I think it's the communication that needs to be addressed and educated to the people in the urban areas of why we do this. And, you know, yes, and as Paul mentioned, the story in Collingwood with the collars. I had a friend who's put their little small dog in the backyard. She turned around to close her sliding door. The coyote came over, got her dog, and was gone. Yeah, it's traumatic, but you know, nobody wants to do anything. And you know, in the urban, they can't carry guns, they don't have guns, and a lot of people do not like guns. So it is a problem. But it's in the beavers. We have 3 ponds. We get beavers, but we don't kill beavers. We just keep people around the area, and they will move on. You know, the next day they start to build somewhere else. And so that it's and I from my Grey County days, I remember being told why they had the beaver bylaw. It was because they were backing up the ponds and they were flooding the roads. So they had to, you know, make sure the roads were open for people to get through. And that's the reason why I had the beaver bylaws. So that was back in the early 2000s. So yeah, I think a little bit of compensation, cost of living, but also it's more an education and getting a really good educational component out to the general public, and they will understand what farming is about.
Thank you,
Those
Gail.
are just my comments.
Great comments. Other people? As you're thinking about raising your hand, I think we need to emphasize to the non-farmers that farmers are doing everything possible to protect their flock. They've got livestock guardian dogs. They've got the most amazing fencing that they can afford. They're bringing them in at night, etc. They don't want to lose their flock. So they're already doing everything possible. And if they need the coyotes to be killed as the final answer, that's something they need in their toolbox. And and I know this may sound odd, but for a non-farmer to tell us that we can't use that item in our toolbox, it doesn't go down well. And so I think the optics, if that's the reason why the bylaws are pulled, it may not go down well either from the farming community. And so something to think about. I think education is important on both sides. Simon, please.
Well, thank you for all the comments, and it's really interesting to hear this discussion. And but this is the one thing what I see to my regret is that the divide between urban and agriculture widens despite all the good efforts that we give. Another thing that is it's very controversial, or we seem to live in a very polarized, a much more polarized world than we have ever done. And soon, the words come up, you're left or you're right. Well, I think if you want to know where left or right is, first you got to determine where center is. And yeah, like we can, the carrying of guns, like we have, I grew up on water and with guns, and there's two things where I have developed a very healthy respect for. So I'm quite happy that in Canada that we have fairly strict gun regulations. I think we just a couple of the observations that I have made on this discussion. I just should stop.
Thank you, Simon. Sarah, please.
I just wanted to emphasize again, and I know we mentioned it, regardless of what happens with the bylaws, it will not prevent anyone from protecting their property. So even if there is not a compensation component through one of these programs, if that's the way that council decides, it will not prevent anyone from hunting or trapping these animals. It's not going to stop it for those in the non-agricultural community, and I will be stressing that as well in my report, because yeah, we're not going to and that was one of the comments that we had heard as well. Like it cannot prevent a landowner from protecting their property, and that includes their livestock. So
I guess in terms of, there's an incentive now for the trappers and the hunters to come out though and look after the coyotes. And if you remove that incentive, do they continue to offer their services, or what does the farmer now have to pay for offering of those services? That would be my question. Scott, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Smith, and thanks everyone that's provided comments. I've been taking notes furiously here. There's lots of good comments, and I think as staff we were thinking going into this that we might see evidence of that urban and rural divide, and that we might see as Simon said, polarization here. I think a lot of the comments that did come in, some, I think it might be a lack of understanding about farming, but I think there's more nuance than just the urban and rural divide. And I think one of the things, again, knowing this group has deep networks across the province, I'd love to hear either now or later via email or in writing or phone conversations, if anyone has any examples they could share from other counties or other municipalities on whether or not this is an issue there. One of the things that led up to Sarah's report here today and council directing a bylaw review was she had done a bunch of research on other jurisdictions across the province that do or don't have these bylaws. And Gray was one of the few that did. And so knowing that we're all, or many municipalities in Ontario are growing and our settlement areas are expanding, and we're seeing less and less natural habitat for some of these animals to live in, I'd love to hear if anyone has any examples from other parts of the province where we have that urban-rural mix on how A, farmers might be dealing with things there, or B, if there's any other examples of municipal approaches that maybe staff have missed in our research. But thanks again for all the comments.
Thanks, Scott. Keith, please.
Yes, good morning. I've been kind of quiet, and I too have been listening and seeing, and I think most of my comments, I think we're going to be just reiterating what everybody else is saying. However, the only thing that I haven't really heard is the removal of the dam and working in the waterway. Like if there's a person that owns a IHO, we're talking about the trapping end of things. What about the removal of the dam with equipment in those waterways? Sarah, you had commented that we wouldn't be in trouble if we were protecting our own properties, but how about have we looked at that case? And then as far as the coyote bylaw, I know like we have sheep as well. I've seen firsthand. Also have had neighbors that have ended up in the hospital because mental health has just got them too far down and basically went out of business. So that divide that Simon was talking about is real, and trying to figure out how that urban population understands the livelihood and the effects of this all is real. So but yeah, if you could comment just about the removal of dams, that would be I don't think there's a site visit that I go to where they don't talk about beavers being an issue. So just comments on that.
Sarah or Scott?
Sure, through you, Chair. So the bylaw itself doesn't speak to the removal of dams, and Keith wearing your CA hat a little bit there. There could be some issues with when and where people are entering a water course to remove the dam. I know a lot of times some of the trappers will try to break down that dam when they are out there. I know that our roads crews often will go in afterwards and remove a dam within a water course, but with regards to any kind of regulation and any landowner entering a water course at any given time, I don't know, and this bylaw doesn't cover that. And I don't know if that's something that has been investigated in the past with regards to that part. But it is key because obviously that's the physical thing that is blocking the water and causing the problem. But what we have heard through this process is get rid of the animal first, and then that won't continue to come back or won't continue to grow. So maybe it is something that we do need to consider as part of the bylaw as well.
Thanks, Sarah. A question to Keith. Keith, the Federation of Agriculture are looking into the livestock guardian dog's role and how, as I understand it, to emphasize to the municipalities how it's a different thing, a livestock guardian dog versus just having a companion dog on your farm. Can you speak to what they're doing for education, et cetera?
To be honest, I'm not too up to speed on where that's at.
Okay.
Diane is also on there. I'm not sure whether you know anything about that as well, Diane. Yeah, sorry, I don't.
No worries. But yeah, maybe we can check into that, Sarah, just because I think they are working on that. Blair, please.
Sarah, I just wanted to follow up on what you said there. Removal of these dams is a big issue. So a few years ago, we had a beaver dam that was blocking the Sydenham River and backing up tile into a couple hundred acres of farmland that is a problem, right? And basically we were told there's nothing you can do, have a nice day. So I don't know. I mean, in that case, it's oceans and fisheries because it's the Sydenham River, right? So I'm assuming this is out of the scope of this bylaw, but it puts farmers in a precarious situation where basically you have to go do something about it, right?
Scott, please. Thanks, Blair.
Yeah, thank you through your Chair Smith. Thanks for the comments about this. I think that's an area that maybe staff need to do a little bit further research here. And we've been talking a lot about education. Sounds like A, we need to educate ourselves a little bit further because I'm a little foggy on some of this. And B, maybe there's some information we could provide back out to landowners. So yeah, really appreciate folks raising those comments.
Any more comments or discussion on this matter?
Hi, sorry, I couldn't get my mute off, but no, I
Diane.
don't know any more about the guardian dogs.
Yeah, maybe we can dig into that a little and help Sarah know what's kind of going on from a provincial level, and because I have heard rumblings that they're working on this. Okay, not seeing any more hands. If we can go back to the motion, all in favor of the motion that was previously read, I see, just raise your hands physically. I know it's hard. Keith, did you want to say something first? Or is that your hand for the motion?
Sorry, that's my hand.
Okay, I think it's just easier to say anyone opposed, please. Seeing no hands, I would say that motion is carried. Thank you very much for that detailed discussion. That is wonderful. Now moving on to the roundtable discussion. This is our opportunity, the farmers' opportunity, to share with the more urban people or non-farmers what's happening in our world. What challenges are we facing? What are the trends? What are the opportunities? I think over the past couple meetings, we haven't had a lot of chatter in here, but this is your opportunity to express what's going on because other people on the meeting may not know. What kind of weather impacts have we been facing? What has there been any impact of tariffs, etc.? Anything you want to share, now is your opportunity. So the floor is yours. Just raise your hand and let's chat. Paul, please.
Well, I didn't think I was going to be the first one speaking, but okay. I think something that needs to be mindful is how farmers have to deal with the weather in the sense of too wet, too dry, et cetera, et cetera. For example, you know, I know I mentioned at I think our last meeting about the ice storm and how that affected certain individuals, and I know just on that fencing and stuff like that was a big problem and stuff like that, but that's not where I'm talking about today. I'm going to speak more about the dry weather we had this summer and around the issues around irrigation and certain things that can quickly affect farmers and not those that irrigate all their crops, but certain sectors do. And I think there just has to be a bit of an urgency when it comes to the agricultural part. Sometimes it can turn around pretty quick. And if there's ways to just streamline things to help that sector, and it could be in multiple different examples, but I think maybe from a municipal side or from a staffing side or from a different perspective or from a lot of across, I'm trying to keep general here because I don't want to get into specifics, but just in the sense that, you know, sometimes farmers need help in a quick fashion, or they need assistance in a quick fashion, or however, or whatever. I just think there has to be a mindful that, you know, farmers grow food for those that, and sometimes circumstances have to move to quick measures, and sometimes bureaucracy gets in the road. I'm trying to stay really general here because I don't want to get into specifics, but it's just the understanding that sometimes when a farmer needs something to assist, and it could be, and I'll give you just a quick example. If there's a situation where there's an elevator or a grain storage needs to be installed in the developers or a cattle barn or whatever, you know, maybe it needs to be a streamline on temp or for access like driveways or agriculture driveways. And I use this as an example. Sometimes, you know, there are bureaucracy processes but sometimes those need to be either streamlined or examples that they move forward quicker than maybe other processes do. And I'm just saying that in general, but just the whole part about farmers and agriculture and the whole part of what farmers do is to grow food for everyone. And sometimes weather or circumstances arise that sometimes there needs to be that understanding that things need to be streamlined or move forward in a quicker fashion. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thanks, Paul. Gail.
Thank you, and through the chair. Yes, it's been busy in the Blue Mountains, and we had the pleasure of Minister Lisa Thompson and Minister Brian Saunderson come to Georgian Hills, which was the second week of August. She was having a tour, and she wanted to see how craft cider was being made, and so she was at Georgian Hills. And then she was touring on to, she went down to Duntroon as well in Simcoe County and saw another cidery there. So it's the craft, having the reduction in tax and in craft cider has been amazing. And the province is picking up on this. And so I was at another event with at Blue Mountain Resorts yesterday for the plunge. They received some money through infrastructure, and I heard of another event that's going to be happening. I can't let the date out as yet, but it will be to celebrate Craft Cider Week, which will be coming up soon. So the ministers will be touring again, and you never know, maybe Premier Ford might come too. So we're hoping that this craft cider is just going to keep going, and people are really on the uptake of that. And so that's one item. On September 27th, Blue Mountains is hosting Open Fields, and we're happy to announce that Meaford will be joining. They have 2 events that are happening in their area. I can't let out what it is as yet, but and we haven't got ours events out where I'm hosting. I'm going to be hosting. Apple Springs will be hosting at our bottom farm a tour of our orchard. We are the only ones in Canada with our high density of 4,000 trees per acre. So people are so interested, they want to see what's happening and how that is and how the wire system and how we are, faring on that, which I think we're doing pretty good. So that's September 27th. That is happening. So more communication will be coming out shortly. Also, what was the other one that we were doing? So as Paul mentioned about drought, we have 3 major ponds, and we had no rain whatsoever here. And we had drained down about 6 feet in all 3 ponds because we had to irrigate our apples. Otherwise, we would have had a crop failure because apples need water. And so every ounce of rain we get, we're very thankful for that. But it's been a devastating year for some cash croppers, some corn. I drive up 40 and the corn's only 2 feet high. It should be 6 feet high, 7 feet high. Canola is wilting in the fields. It's devastating to these farmers. So, and there are some apple growers that do not have irrigation. And I don't think they're going to fare too well this year. That's for sure. It's going to be hard slugging. That gets your mental health wondering how you're going to pay for all these bills and the high cost. And talking with another minister yesterday about, they asked about the apple crop, and I know Niagara was very successful in receiving some money for water treatment plants down there. It's to build more homes, but also the farmers are going to be piggybacking on this so that they can get some infrastructure. They may not have ponds. They need irrigation. They need the infrastructure to be able to do that. So they were very successful in receiving, I forget how many millions of dollars to help homes and the farmers. So that's very successful. But in our area here, to tie all our farms in, we're too far out in the rural and ag areas that we can't get pipes out this way. So to build a pond these days, you're looking at $250,000, and I don't know how many people have $250,000 in their back pocket to support putting in another pond, but it's very trying on the farmers, definitely. Any type of farming. So I will just leave it at that. There's probably somebody else with their hand up there. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Great comments. Simon, please.
Well, thank you for giving me the floor again. And interesting points there from Gail and from Paul. Interestingly enough, we are just over the border into Bruce County. Our crops are, and thanks the Lord for all the goodness, but our crops are good, and we have generally had enough rain, and that's all good news as far as that goes. But I can see that for non-farming people, if I hear those comments from 2 different people, that it is incredibly, what would I say, misleading or hard to understand how life really runs in agriculture. And I have heard the phrase mental health a number of times today, and more I'm actually looking forward to some workshop again and see where we're at, like with the mental health in agriculture. The circles where I connect with, I might be overstating, but I think that mental health generally I find quite good right now, despite a lot of uncertainties in agriculture and the tariffs. Of course, we heard something about that already, and yeah, like that will stay a loose cannon on the deck probably for the next 3.5 years yet, or I count today's actually 3 years and 4 months. And that is providing that that Canada will stay an independent country. But that is beside the point. But in any case, as an what would I say, not so young person anymore, I try to counsel people maybe if they need it, and yeah, try to gauge their where they're at, and I tend to think that there is maybe more communication between people now than there was right after COVID. Like I think we have picked up a little bit, so that's maybe good news. But I think it behooves ourselves to keep reaching out to neighbors that are in need of some sort of a help.
Thank you, Simon. Great points as always. Blair, please.
This is a question or a comment, probably for Scott. We're seeing a few more, or I guess quite a few more applications for severances on properties that are, I always get the wording confused, but it's lands that are designated for rural use or properties that might have an ag-rural split use on the map. I've been reading the official plan, and I guess just wondering, I know it states in there that lands that are designated for rural use are supposed to be prioritized for agriculture, but I just wondered if that is just up to the discretion of council, or how that works in that case where people are trying to sever 2-3 acre lots out of a cornfield that might be designated rural.
Thanks, Blair. Scott, please.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thanks for that, Blair. And so just maybe taking a step back just for everyone's benefit on the call. I know some are more familiar with planning than others, but basically across the countryside in gray, we have 3 main designations. We have our special agricultural designation, which is primarily where we see a lot of the apples and now more so some of the grapes being grown. And that has fairly high restrictions on the ability to sever, like you can't sever a non-farm lot there. We have our agricultural designation, which are supposed to be some of the county's highest quality soils in large pockets. And again, severances are fairly restricted there. You could sever to create a new farm. So if you had 200 acres, you could sever it into 2 100 acres. Or you can sever off a surplus farm dwelling. So where a farmer has bought out, say, a neighboring farm or a farm down the road, and they only need 1 house, they can potentially sever off the house on the second farm, provided that lot is as small as possible. And then we have our rural lands, and I think this is sort of more what Blair was referring to. In the rural lands, in many cases, can still be fairly productive agricultural lands. Maybe they're not quite as high a quality as some of the class 1, 2, and 3 lands in the agricultural designation. But certainly there can be some pockets of those rural lands that are quite high quality. In other cases, they can not be great for agricultural. They might be very stony. They might be steep elevation or wet in that regard. But there are some quality lands in the rural designation. So the county hasn't changed our policies on rural severances in quite some time, not since 2019. we do kind of see peaks and valleys in terms of the interest level in creating rural severances, particularly those non-farm lots. Certainly, you know, when we look back to some of the economic downturns of 2008, 2009, there were some folks that were coming to us and saying, hey, listen, you know, I need to sever a lot to generate some income to help the farm or to help personal finances. But the other thing that's happened more recently is you know, some of the talk around the province on sort of the housing crisis, if you will, and the need for more housing. And again, the county hasn't necessarily changed our policies in that regard. But I think even some of the interest in the media and other places has generated some interest from some in terms of severing these rural lots. It's something we're keeping an eye on. The provincial policy planning statement, sorry, as this committee may remember, in its draft form originally had far more permissive severance policies, even the agriculture. The farm community spoke up loud and clear there, and the province listened, and they didn't proceed with some of those changes. But the province has made it known that particularly in those rural areas, so not your prime agricultural lands, that there is opportunities for housing. And so as staff, we're trying to advise council on sort of what that fine line there is, if you will. You know, on a piece of land, is there the ability to sever off 2 acres? Yeah, maybe. Should there the ability to sever off, you know, 52 acre parcels? Maybe not. Maybe that's where we'd want to direct that development to our settlement areas. So and then more specifically to your question, Blair, the plan and the plans are a little different across the county, but the plan at the county level gives some criteria that people have to consider when looking at a rural severance. So things like size, things like the ability to get a well and septic system, minimum distance separation, so this distance to neighboring livestock or manure storage facilities, impact on the natural environment, impact on other resources like aggregate. So there are some rural areas that for other reasons are constrained from severances. But certainly we are seeing cases where, you know, somebody is taking 2 or 5 acres from an otherwise productive field or pasture land, and it is going into non-farm development. That's something that's currently permitted by both the province and the county, but we've definitely heard, you know, the pros and cons of doing so and sort of protecting the long-term land base and livelihood of farmers in that regard. So that was a bit of a long-winded answer, but certainly, Blair, happy to take the conversation offline too if it's something you want to chat further on, for sure.
Do you have follow-up, Blair?
No, I think that answers my question.
Thank you. Okay, other people that we haven't heard from. Comments on how things are going? What are the trends? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? If I don't see anything shortly, we will move on in the agenda. Blair, please.
Just a quick comment about drones. Does Grey County have a drone policy, or has it been thought about?
Scott, please.
Yeah, I can take a shot at this one and invite any of the other county staff to weigh in, because it's not necessarily something I'm overly familiar with. To answer your question, we don't specifically have a drone policy that I'm aware of at the county level. This is one of those areas that you get into multi-governmental layers of jurisdiction, and in some cases, airspaces and other such things. I know we'd heard, and others may be able to speak more intelligently on this than I am, that conservation authorities and even the national parks were having issues with that as well. But to my knowledge, we don't specifically have a policy. The county does have some drones that we use for our own purposes, but we use that within a very sort of limited scope of practice, and I'm not sure that would be causing issue. But I see the CAO has his hand up, so maybe I'll defer to the chair through to Randy.
Randy, please.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Thank you, Chair Smith. Yeah, I'm not aware that we have any specific drone policies, but as Scott indicated, usually the regulations, especially for a certain size of drones, falls under Transport Canada regulations. I know, as Scott indicated, we do have our own drones that we use from time to time for our own purposes, and we do have to register flight plans and other things like that as part of using those drones when we're taking some imagery. So yeah, so I think it is something that I know our GIS staff and our IT staff are more aware of in terms of what's required with respect to that. And we do have training programs for staff that in order to use our drones in order to capture those imageries. Yeah, that's all I know in terms of drones at this stage.
Thanks, Randy. Blair, was your question about drones for farm use? So for us to use them, or like nuisance drones? What were your thinking?
Just drones in general. I'm just hoping that I'm hoping that there is no regulation, that we just rely on Transport Canada and don't do anything silly is all I'm thinking.
Okay, good point. Gail, please.
Yes, just a question through the chair. We had some controversy in our area. We were doing an update to property standards, and we really heard from the rural people that property standards in rural is illegal. And so when I was at AMO, which is the Association of Municipalities, I tried to get as many municipalities as I could to find out if they had property standards in their rural area. We have property standards in Thornbury, Craigleaf, in our settlement areas, but we do not have it in the rural areas. And I heard from many agricultural people, and I guess through one individual who was spearheading this, that this was totally illegal in rural areas. And I've been trying to contact OMAFRA, and they didn't have too much information for me. So I was going to go to OFA and find out from them if this is. So I have, because it falls under my auspice, I'm a community service chair of, and so I've done a notice of motion to halt anything on property standards until we get full definition or clarity. They're just basically, this group is basically saying it is totally illegal. And the reason for that is because one of the individuals has a few beef cattle, but his take on it is if he had a flapping tin roof and the neighbor was complaining because of food security, that bylaws not allowed to enter their farm to tell him about his flapping roof. And my comment back was, to be good stewards of the land, maybe you wouldn't want to bother your neighbor and fix your roof yourself. So I'm just, if anybody's had this problem out there, we're just, because we have got so much influx of urbanites coming into the rural areas and building their estates. They are having, they want to do some different things. And then you've got a derelict farm beside you with all these cars and different things, and they want the mess cleaned up. So we do not have property standards in our rural areas. And I'm just trying to sort this out. And if anybody could be of any help, that would be greatly appreciated. We can do it offline, online, whatever.
Thanks, Gail. Anyone have any comments to Gail's points? The county doesn't mess with this. Is this a municipal thing? Scott, please.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the county doesn't have property standards bylaws in that regard, and staff, as Ms. Ardell can probably understand, can't give out legal advice. Certainly not qualified to do that. But it might be worth a discussion with the town's solicitor in that regard, just to see. Based on a very quick Google search, it appears there's other rural municipalities that do have property standards, but that is literally a 30-second search, and I certainly wouldn't want that to be relied on. Certainly happy to chat further with town staff or town council in that regard, but I think if there's concerns about legality, maybe the solicitor would be a prudent next step.
Thanks, Scott. Great advice. Gail?
We did that. And this group still says it's illegal, and many people may know who it's coming from, but it's a landowners association, and it's saying it's totally illegal, but I have found it's not. But I will phone OFA and talk to. I was given a name of someone, but I think I talked to most of the mayors from Grey County at AMO, and they all have property standards. So I think we're the only ones that don't. So we're just going to leave it for now till we sort through. Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Any other people want to chat about anything? Keith, please.
Yeah, just a quick reminder that this is fall fair season, and lots have already happened. Meaford, Duresboro was last weekend, Durham, and lots more coming up. Owen Sound this weekend, Dundalk, yeah, lots of them in the area to attend, and to even if you're not competing or have anything at the fair, there's still lots of opportunities to speak with urban people, and there's lots of questions out there. And I would encourage anybody that's on county staff or county or within municipal councils to attend them, as well as a great opportunity to meet extra people. With that in mind, too, also brings this time of year the Outdoor Farm Show and the International Plowing Match. And thinking ahead to next year, it's going to be very close with our Bruce County hosting the International Plowing Match. So something to think about as well as neighbors.
Thanks, Keith. That's a great reminder. And a lot of our farmers are really heavily involved in these fairs. So hats off to all the volunteers that make these fairs happen, and to our ag societies who do amazing things. And we've got, I know, some ag society members on this call as well. So thank you for everything that you do, because the fairs are a highlight for everyone in Grey County and far beyond. Thank you. Anyone else have anything more to add? Moving on in the agenda then, we have no correspondence. Anyone have any other business? As you're thinking, I will remind everyone that Grey Bruce Farmers Week is happening in January. It's our 60th annual. It's running from the 7th to the 12th. It's 6 days this year instead of 7. Please join us, because it's going to be a great event as always. And there'll be more details to come on our website about all the great speakers that we're getting. I'd also like, in other business, to find out if you have ideas for the next meeting. The next meeting will be December 10th. And so if you have ideas, it would be great to generate that list sooner than later. I am trying to chase an FCC person to come and talk about, the current financial situation for farmers and the market update maybe. So I am chasing the channels to find the right person. But what else should we be speaking about that matters to you? So whether you want to mention that now, or email me or Grey County staff, just so that we can maybe create a list, and then we're not in the month of the meeting going, oh, what should we put on the agenda? If we had a list, and I'd love to create more energy. I think when we first started this committee, there was lots of energy. And as I was saying to Scott at our Grey Ag anniversary, just feels like it's dwindling a little bit. And I'd love to get that energy back. So if you have suggestions about topics that we can include in the meeting that would maybe fire us up a bit, not too much perhaps, but some ideas for meetings, that would be great. Anyone have anything to say now, or you'll think on it? Gail, please.
I had a question from somebody who sits on my ag committee about Bill 5 and how it's going to affect the agricultural aspect.
Okay. So I'm sure that Grey County staff are writing that down, and we'll figure out the best person to speak to that. That's great, Gail. Other thoughts? If you don't, oh, there's Simon.
Well, thank you for asking that question, Lori. And even today in our discussion, I think there's a number of things that have come up that we can maybe look into, like the guarding dogs. Certainly, that is one of those things that is something that I have never thought. And of course, the fact that Blair brought up about the drones, and this is going to be a very complicated and very far-reaching effect, and that this are item in our lives, because I think the legal implications of drones are and the laws surrounding them are running far behind the developments that are taking place in that aspect of agriculture, and the county is using them themselves. So yeah, that is just anyhow, just my couple cents for it.
That's great, Simon. Thank you. Anyone else have some ideas for future agenda items? Are you back, Simon? Nope. If you haven't got the idea right in your brain right now, as I said, please email me or staff, Grey County staff, and we can add those items to a list that we can tackle over the next period of time. Our next meeting date, as I said, is Wednesday, December 10th, 2025 at 9 a.m. And see if no one else has anything to say, I would like to adjourn this meeting. Could someone make a motion, please, to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
I think Keith beat you, Simon.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, Keith.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. A very quick meeting, which is great. We would like to thank everyone and have a wonderful day. Take care.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.